Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. The Bible tells one big story of redemption, and we want to spend 5 minutes every day journeying through the Bible from start to finish and exploring how all of it points to Jesus.
Hey friends, welcome back to our podcast. I am so glad you are joining us today because it's an exciting period of time in the life of David. He finally will be crowned king of all of Israel, and there won't be a weird civil war thing happening anymore. But before we get there, there's a little bit of drama to sort through. Now we know from yesterday's reading that Abner, Saul's former army commander, has died. He was murdered by David's army commander, Joab, because Abner killed Joab's brother, Asahel. And David put on a big production about mourning him, even though Abner was the one who had caused so much trouble for him in the first place with making Ishbosheth king. Abner was honestly the real leader of the northern part of Israel. Ishbosheth was more like a puppet in his command. David had been gaining more and more power over Abner, so when Abner agreed to help David, it was game over for Ishbosheth. And now that Abner has been killed, Ishbosheth knows he doesn't have much time left. 2 of Ishbosheth's captains decide to just get the job done themselves, and they murder him while he's taking a nap. Pretty terrible and cowardly of them. He doesn't even have a chance of defending himself. They cut off his head and take it to David. Obviously, they have not heard about what David did to the Amalekite who claimed to kill Saul. And this situation is even worse because they were fellow Benjamites. They were Ishbosheth's brothers, and they weren't pagan men who didn't know about the Lord. They did this terrible act in direct disobedience to God in an attempt to try and win power and prestige with the next king of Israel. But David does not have any of it, and he has the men executed on the spot. The text lets us know about the remaining heir to Saul's throne at the beginning of chapter 4. It's quickly inserted by the author so that we know there's someone left who has a claim to the kingdom. But it seems like he'd be an easy person for David to deal with. He's very young, and he's actually lame. But David's interaction with this heir, whose name is Mephibosheth, will come later in the story. For now, it's time to celebrate because all the tribes of Israel have come forward and gathered at Hebron to crown David king. David has waited 7 years for this moment, and it's finally here. There's a whole bunch of things that happen right away. David clears out the last remaining Canaanites in the land, the Jebusites, and takes over the city that they were inhabiting, Jerusalem. This is a big moment in the story of the Bible. Jerusalem will always be known as the city of God. We even call our eternal home New Jerusalem. David takes over the city and is becoming greater and greater and greater. He is even attracting the attention of other kings across the world. Hiram, king of Tyre, one of the wealthiest trade port cities at the time, sends David cedar trees and men to build David a house with them. Remember the Lord's promise to Abraham. All the nations of the earth will be blessed through your offspring. The nations reaching out to David in this way is a foreshadowing of how all of the nations will one day bow before the one who will establish David's throne forever, Jesus. And through him, all men, both Gentile and Jew, will be able to have salvation. However, David is not this messianic king. He's got some serious flaws. Verses 13 through 15 of chapter 5 show us how he is already taking loads of concubines and wives from Jerusalem. He is breaking the Lord's rules about marriage, and this is the start of sexual sin that will continue to evolve in his life. However, David seeks the Lord, even amidst all of his problems, and the Lord gives him victory. He beats the Philistines squarely. Verse 24 of chapter 5 even gives us a cool description of how the Lord's armies were marching on top of the balsam trees to go before him in battle. David makes an important move and decides to bring the ark of the Lord back with him to Jerusalem. This will make Israel a central place of worship. But when they first take the ark from where it was, they put it on a cart, which went against the Lord's commandment of carrying it. And because it was on a cart, when the oxen stumbled, one of the priests supervising the whole affair reached out to steady the ark, but he touched it where he should not have, and the Lord struck him down. This may seem a little harsh to us, but God is holy, and we are not. What Uzzah did signaled that he was too familiar with the ark and did not esteem it how he should. And David gets freaked out by this whole affair and also realizes how he is not worthy of God's presence. And he leaves the ark with a Levite named Obed-Edom, and the Lord blesses this man. Eventually, David goes back again and brings the ark to Jerusalem. He is dancing before the Lord and celebrating with the people. They are offering tons of sacrifices as the ark goes into the city as well. They want to esteem the Lord and worship him rightly. The chapter ends with a sad exchange between Michal and David. Michal thinks David is acting foolishly and that he is uncovering himself before all of his servants, even the female servants. And David responds bitingly that he will always be willing to be undignified before the Lord, and at least his female servants honored him. The story is often portrayed in a way that looks down on Michal, but we need to remember that she's had it pretty rough. She is the only wife of David who's described as loving him. But when he runs from Saul in 1 Samuel, her father gives her to another man, and David doesn't come for her for a long time. When she does return, David has married other women, and now he has an entire harem. There's more going on here than it seems, and the text tells us she never has a child. The narrator is doing a good job of revealing David's heart for the Lord, but also revealing his brokenness. And it is good for us to see how the Lord is patient with us, just as he is patient with David. We will always struggle with sin here on earth, and it is only in eternity that we will be fully restored. We'll see you tomorrow for more from the life of David, and follow along with us on Instagram to get all the latest on our gospel-centered resources at Daily Grace Podcast and at the Daily Grace Co. We'll see you tomorrow.